Bettor Sports Betting is your home for picks, props, and futures for tonight's action. Bettor Sports Betting wants to know what picks you're playing tonight. Tell us in the live chat on YouTube, Twitter, and the Bettor Sports Network app. This is Bettor Sports Betting with Fantasy Alarm's Dan Servadidio.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Bettor Sports Betting on this 4th of July. Hope you all are safe. Hope everybody is great. I am not Dan Servadidio. I am Justin Fensterman filling in for Dan Servadidio along here with James Grande. And for the next little bit, we're going to talk about what we like for tonight's baseball action. Talk a little NBA futures as well here on the Bettor Sports Network here. James, what's going on? How you doing? We will get James back here in just a second. We're going to go over some of these games that are going to be popping on here tonight. Here, we're going to give our best bets here, but wanted to remind all of you first here if you're looking for other contests to be a part of, you can play the Real-Time Sports Daily Pick'em contest. You set a lineup of player props, hit them all and win NFL, MLB, NBA, PGA, and more. Go to rtsports.com/BSN or rtsports.com/alarm. First-time depositors get 100% instant match up to $200 with deposit codes ALARM23, ALARM, number 23, or BSN23. Please play responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. What we're looking at on the baseball slate here, we'll talk about the games that are starting from 4:35 p.m. Eastern on here. Some of the action that we have include the Mariners and the Giants. The Giants have been a little bit banged up, so very interested to see the Mariners and what their offense they're going to do tonight here. When you're looking at them and you're seeing that they're favored by the 1.5 here, plus 165 on the run line for Seattle. So interesting with San Francisco and them having the season they've had so far. Now dealing with a few injuries here. We'll have to see what Logan Gilbert has, what kind of heat he could bring them tonight. Also, the Angels, we all got the news regarding Mike Trout, the broken bone in his hand there, now going to miss up to 2 months of action. Just brutal. Was talking to our producer, who we say hello to, and thank you for working on this great holiday, Tyler Soto, just about this Angels team and what's the future holding for this squad here. Ohtani, is he still going to be a member of the team by the end of the season? We'll have to wait and see if he is ended up being dealt. But looking at some other props here from this game, we absolutely will. One of them that I like here regarding Mr. Musgrove is starting to climb up the odds a little bit. I'll go over that as well here. Then you've got the A's and the Tigers seeing some plus money odds here on the pitching front from JP Sears that I like. James Grande is going to be with me that he likes as well. Then you've got, starting at the 7 o'clock hour here Eastern time, the Braves and the Guardians. Shane Bieber on the hill here going up against those awesome and always threatening Atlanta Braves bats. Then you've got the Toronto Blue Jays going up against the Chicago White Sox here. Chris Bassett, Lucas Giolito. And I'll just start by saying right now with this game, even with these pitchers on the hill tonight, still thinking some runs will be scored in this game. The White Sox have been heating up, and the Blue Jays hit righties very, very well. And then this game, which I am loving. And by the way, if you go to our Twitter at Fantasy Alarm, you will see that there is a graphic put out there where you could give your home run prediction for the day. And I know I like someone from this Dodgers squad. So that is where I'm going to be looking. And also, obviously, with NBA still going on, there are odds out there where Damian Lillard's going to end up, where James Harden is going to end up as well. And speaking of James, here's James Grande joining me right now. Dude, it's okay, man. You're here. You're all
gosh
good.
Dang, Storm. This is why if I could, since you're a SpongeBob watcher, a SpongeBob enjoyer.
My leg.
I would, if I could, be like Sandy Cheeks, and I'd have my own bubble, and I'd have it weather controlled, and I would never have to worry about storms. Yes.
Just make sure if you have that bubble, you have water for all the sea creatures down there. You don't want them to dry up in your environment.
Of course. And we'd have the approach that Sandy has, and, the air, like how you have to step into the room prior to entering her bubble and all that. So that's what I would go with, because every time, The storm is killing me. Now my power goes out. It's back on. But I'm back, Fancy. I'm ready to roll.
Yes, and if you go out again, I will make sure to do all my SpongeBob impressions, including "Hey Patrick." Exactly right there. Just one for you.
Hi, Kevin.
Oh man.
Hi, Kevin.
Oh, James Grande. Love this guy very much here. So, Grande, I was just talking about the RT Sports Pick'em contest where you and I were talking about you'll actually be on the DFS MLB stream right after this with the Rotobuzz guy, Howard Bender. And we were so close because you and I put our two heads together to come up with the two props here. You came through big time on your end on your strikeout prop with, I believe, Mr. Webb. For me, I had going over the 1.5 hits here. I had Juan Soto, but I just missed it, man. He got the one. He did not get the second hit, so we didn't hit. So I owe you a drink at some point, my friend. I apologize.
I think the good thing is I might have entered it incorrectly, and it ended up being the case because I entered it as Fernando Tatis by accident. And Fernando Tatis had 5 total bases, Fensty. So
wow,
we hit.
You might have been Tatis. Maybe I'm messing things up.
I think
right
you
now.
hit, dude. You had Soto as your home run call, and
That's
you took the Fernando Tatis over total bases 1.5. So
right.
take back your apology, take back your drink. Now we can both afford one. Now that we both are, splitting the profits over there.
Hey, sorry, I'm not sorry. So we hit that right there, and you can hit it as well when you go to rtsports.com and go to the Pick'em contest. I gave some details about that just before. James, I also mentioned because, the Angels are a team of focus for tonight's action. The bad news regarding Mike Trout, going to miss up to 2 months of action, messing up his bone in his hand. Just devastating for this team. And this is a team, by the way, where one of the things I was just questioning, Shohei Ohtani, will he still be a member of this team post-trade deadline? And Mike Trout going down definitely doesn't help that.
Definitely doesn't. They've already made some moves prior to the deadline too. They went out and got Moustakas. They signed Eduardo, or they got Escobar as well, and they've actually been good pieces. And I think on the show, me and Servo did actually on this Better Sports Betting show on Thursday, we previewed the NL West and the odds to win the division. And I think the Angels, prior to this Trout injury, were about one front end starter away from potentially not winning the division. Texas has a pretty good stranglehold on that, but making noise because when you have Ohtani, you have the Reed Detmer's emergence here as their number 2 with big strikeout upside. They need another starter, and the Trout news definitely hurts. Now, I will say, they do have a plethora of outfield depth. I mean, Renfroe, Ohtani, isn't he's an outfielder. Taylor Ward has been better. Mickey Moniak, former number 1 overall pick, has been really good since being called up. The ever so elephant in the room, Joe Adell, is he ever going to be something in the major leagues like he is in the minors and whatnot? So, I think they have the sustain a bit as our producer Heavy T chimes in with some kind words for Joe Adell here. Yeah, I mean, they have I think what they need to sustain to stay in the playoffs, but obviously they're not going to go in deep into October without Trout. So we'll see when he returns. They said until at least August, but that definitely hurts their playoff odds. What is their playoff odds now? I wonder if it moved after we found out about the Trout injury. Just to make the playoffs, let's see what the Angels are right now, Fensty. The Los Angeles Angels to make the playoffs. I think DraftKings took it down. Interesting.
Probably,
I don't see anything on. I don't see anything on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense though with such an impactful injury. Probably just going to reset the odds a little bit, and they'll be back on DraftKings. But we've got plenty of action though on DraftKings Sportsbook that we're going to talk about tonight here when it comes to betting. And let's talk about our best bets of the night here. By the way, you have a question regarding a bet that you're thinking of placing, hit us up in the comments section and we will read said bets there. If you have been riding with Better Sports Betting since we've begun here on Better Sports Network, then let us know what's been working out for you. Let's help each other out here. You have a team, you have a player that you're just smashing on. Here, let's all win together. That's what the 4th of July, America, that's what we're all about right here on BSN. Because, Grande, when I'm looking at our best bets of the night, we're both involved in the same game. And it seems like you and I are both in agreement. And we didn't talk about this at all because the first thing I look at when I look at any slate, those powered teams, those threatening teams, teams like the Dodgers who have been heating up a bit lately. And when I'm looking at who they're facing tonight, Luis Ortiz, my best bet tonight, which maybe you can shed some light on this. I'm kind of shocked it's plus money. Maybe because 6 hits is a lot. Maybe it's not for this team. Luis Ortiz over 5.5 hits allowed at plus 100, man. That's some plus money that I love. And I don't know where the trap lies with that.
Yeah. So when you take a look at Luis Ortiz, a guy who has been in and out, I mean, most of his games have been in a starting role, but he has pitched out of the bullpen as well. And he has been working his pitch count up. The last time, started at 74. Last time we saw him, 69 pitches, 6 hits allowed. He's now gone over this number, Fensty, 4 of his last 5 outings. The only scenario I can see that would lead it to not hitting, truthfully, is he is not someone who has good control at all. And he walks a lot of people.
Yes, he
The
does.
Dodgers are a team that's obviously elite offensively in totality, but they are a team that also walks a whole bunch. They have a 10.2% walk rate against right-handed pitching. That's second highest in the league. And if they're walking and it's like walk, 3-run home run, walk, 3-run home run, well, that doesn't exactly help the hits portion of this program.
Nope.
And you and I also are going to get to some home run odds later. And that kind of plays out, could play out exactly how we want it based on who you and I have as our home run calls. So, I think that it goes over, but we need the Dodgers to jump at Luis Ortiz before he starts walking the farm, because that's a common theme with Luis Ortiz throughout his short tenure in the major leagues. But like you said, it is kind of, I'm in lockstep. I like the Dodgers to blow Pittsburgh out tonight. I am on the Dodgers run line, minus 120 over on DraftKings Sportsbook. And, the Pirates offense has been really stagnant. I mean, they had 8 runners on, and I stacked Michael Grove against Michael Grove. I love targeting Michael Grove in DFS and in prop betting and all of that. They had 8 runners on in 4 innings and scored 1 run against them. And, the Dodgers do have a good bullpen too. I just don't see this getting out of hand. Emmett Shaheen starting for the Dodgers tonight. He has been really good through his first couple starts of his major league career. And Pittsburgh's offense just really scuffling. So I do think Luis Ortiz gives over hits, Fancy. I like it. We just have to, the trap is the walks, because that could be what doos him in before we ever get to the over hits. But I do think the Dodgers ultimately blow them out.
If that happens, I'm literally going to tweet you tonight and go, walk, 3-run home run. Walk, 3-run home run. FML. That's what you're going to see from me on Twitter right there. Okay. By the way, you see our Twitter handles for James at _real_grande. For me, at Fensty Sports. So make sure you follow us along here. We have a ton of content out there, James. In a little bit, we're going to be getting into a little NBA future action for just a few minutes as well. A few interesting things on the books, and you identified something that's very, very telling going into this season. So we'll get to that in just a little bit here. So those are our best bets here, both on the same game. Me from Luis Ortiz over 5.5 hits allowed at plus 100, and James on the run line for the Los Angeles Dodgers at minus 120. So now we move to some of the other bets that we like here, James. So why don't I let you start off with your next favorite bet of the night?
Yeah, so I was actually going to take the Logan Gilbert strikeouts, but you stole it. So thank you for that. So I'm going to go with Jose Ramirez over 1.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs. It's not really juicy, minus 150 on DraftKings, but I'll give you some juice upcoming after this. I love Jose Ramirez against a left-handed pitcher. And the Braves are throwing Colby Allard out there, and he's faced 18 batters in the majors this year. So obviously not a big sample. But if you remember Colby Allard from last year, he was very bad against righties. He was very bad against lefties. He just didn't record a lot of outs. But he was hit for a ton of power. And Jose Ramirez has flashed the power against left-handed pitching entire year. 235 ISO. He's in the midst of the best stretch of his season right now. And it's been like this for like a month or so. So Jose Ramirez over a hit run or a 1.5 hits runs RBIs is something that one of my favorite plays of the day. That was close to my best bets. I should have just gone with like two best bets, plural, because it is best bets. If I wanted it to be plural, I could have. But Jose Ramirez minus 150 for the over there. I love.
There you go. They're a little juiced up, but still, minus 150 is kind of the threshold for me. I'm
Yep.
still fine with a minus 150. Once we get to minus 180, minus 190, then it starts to get a little bit unappealing to me. But minus 150, I'm still totally cool with there. You mentioned the Logan Gilbert prop, and we talked about this yesterday during the DFS show. And we've talked about it for the last few days. This Giants team is very banged up.
Yep.
Very banged up here. Now, with Logan Gilbert, the numbers being a little bit all over the place, over 5.5 strikeouts, I think is very attainable facing this injured lineup tonight. Saw that at minus 115 for the over. And then I wanted to take it a little bit further, Grande, because I noticed that his outs, and a lot of the times you see 17.5 outs for good matchups here, and I'm totally cool with that with established pitchers. But Logan Gilbert on DraftKings Sportsbook over 16.5 outs recorded. So at this point, he just needs to last 5 2/3, and we win this bet here. So I want to ask you here, James, what do you like better? Because I like both of these tonight, and I'm trying to figure out if there's one I like over the other between his over 5.5 strikeouts or the over 16.5 outs recorded.
It's close. I think both are definitely live. I would go the strikeouts. That was what I was originally going to go with for my prop as well. 5.5. We just saw, and it's not apples to apples ever when you compare like previous matchups, right? We saw Brian Wu yesterday look really good on the mound for Seattle and struck out a bunch of Giants, but you touched on top. Like San Francisco is hurting right now, and they did get Conforto and Yastrzemski back, but that didn't matter, and it hasn't really mattered in the strikeout department specifically. Fensty, 24.7% strikeout rate this year against right-handed pitching is the fourth highest mark in the league. I think I could see a scenario where Gilbert gets to this mark and still gives up some runs because the Giants do have a pretty potent offense. And if that's the case, and if the pitch count's being driven up, we're not going to get him pitching deeper into games. So give me the strikeouts. I like both. Can't fault you for betting both. One or either of them, but I lean the strikeouts.
Yeah, it does it worry you though that when you're looking at this number, it hasn't been there for him. I mean, is this a make good spot for him and us taking advantage here of Logan Gilbert? Because look at his strikeout numbers over his last few starts. The last time he actually went over this was about a month ago at this point here. So that's my one concern, that he hasn't been doing it, but I feel like we're taking advantage of the lineup. He's gotten 2-5 before, even against the Orioles a few starts ago. But still, man, normally when I don't see it, I don't bet it. But with this lineup being as damaged as it is, this Giants lineup, I'm cool with it tonight.
Yeah, man, I think there's specific factors that go into every matchup, right? Like if you look at Logan Gilbert's recent matchups, Washington has the lowest strikeout rate in baseball. People don't strike out. There may not be like this amazing offense and it's death by 1,000 cuts approach where they just single, like no home runs. They don't strike out. Like they put everything in play. Baltimore is not a high strikeout rate. Chicago White Sox, for how flawed they are with how right-handed heavy they are, they don't really strike out outside of like Luis Robert, who if he's not striking out, he's doing serious damage. So like he hasn't really had a lot of great strikeout matchups. The Giants are, and this is the exact scenario that I saw with Logan Webb. And again, not apples to apples, but last night Logan Webb hadn't gone over 5.5 strikeouts in 3 consecutive starts. But you look into the matchups he had prior, and a lot of that had to do with the matchups. And it's the same thing here. Fourth highest strikeout rate in baseball against right-handed pitching for the Giants. And he's coming off starts against 3 teams that are bottom 10 in strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. So I don't disagree, Fancy, but sometimes like we need to just take a look at the whole picture. And yeah, it's frustrating. He went 7 innings against Baltimore and gave you 5 strikeouts. It's like, all right, man, like yeah, you're a guy with who started the year, his first 7 starts, 6+ in every outing.
But you'll take
That's
that against Baltimore, though.
right. You take it. I'm just saying, like, you know the upside's there. It ticks you off that he doesn't go more than that in 7 innings. So I think you look at the totality of everything. I mean, he has over a strikeout per inning this year. Like if he gets you 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, we ride off into the sunset happy.
I might have to ride your best bets plural thing because again, this for the first few hours of the day was my best bet, and then I ended up switching it in the last hour and a half to the Ortiz hits prop. So we both like that on the strikeouts front. I think the outs are definitely in play over 16 and a half for Logan Gilbert. That game is starting up in about 15 minutes. So if you are planning on betting it, do it right now. Still watch us, still hang out, but definitely do it right now. James, what else you like here for tonight's docket and betting?
Yeah, so I got an interesting one. And this is where I think where our Jose Ramirez prop comes into play. We could parlay it maybe with a Chris Bassett over 18 and a half outs. And it was plus very juicy plus money, plus 135 over on DraftKings. And here's why I like this. Over his last 14 starts, he's gone over in 8 of them. So pretty good success rate going over, 6 1/3. Chris Bassett gets the White Sox tonight as my power flickers once again. Chris Bassett has had massive struggles with left-handed bats, like massive. It is horrible. He hasn't had any success against him, like literally since the start of the year until now. But then you go over to the White Sox lineup, and I just mentioned it like 2 seconds ago. They are very, very, very right-handed dominant, like extremely right-hand dominant. And for whatever reason, they're not even starting Yasmani Grandal tonight. They have 2 lefties in their lineup tonight. Again, Andrew Benintendi, who has zero power, zero, like negative power, zero. The guy that everyone thought he was going to be in Boston doesn't exist. He has no power. And then Oscar Colas, who is a very touted prospect, heavily touted in seasonal fantasy leagues coming into the year, was a lot of hype behind this kid, made the team, stunk it up before getting sent down. Was really good in AAA again. But those are their 2 lefties in the lineup. Chris Bassett has not allowed any damage to righties this year, like negative damage. And I understand Luis Robert is really good, and I understand Eloy Jimenez is really good, and Andrew Vaughn. Chris Bassett has allowed a 221 WOBA to righties, a 077 ISO, no power that exists ever. So, like, I really think Chris Bassett can go deep into this game because this is the exact matchup that Chris Bassett thrives in, where a lineup that doesn't have any lefties throws out a lineup with, for whatever reason, doesn't use their lefty hitting catcher, doesn't use Gavin Sheets, their lefty hitting outfielder, like everything. Like, why does their analytics department not see this? That Chris Bassett is getting smashed to a 300 ISO and a 409 WOBA against lefties. Why am I the one sitting up here saying that? But because they're not, I'm taking advantage of Chris Bassett over 18 and a half. Pretty juicy number over on DraftKings at plus 135.
So I got to ask you then, because another bet that I was toying with was the over potentially in this Blue Jays White Sox game. And I know what the White Sox have done over the last week, and they've been hitting nicely. But with what you just said, kind of makes me not want to bet the over in this game anymore at 8.5 runs. What say you?
I mean, look, I think it's a little scary depending on. So Toronto has a very good bullpen behind Bassett. And if Bassett gives you what he gave you last start, he's shutting him down. And Toronto's going to ride off into the sunset for a win in this game. On the flip side, Lucas Giolito has struggled. And he has to face, obviously, a very tough lineup. And he struggled against lefties and he struggled against righties. And the Blue Jays have 4.5 implied runs today, and that's a solid number. They're not a team that strikes out a whole lot. I mean, 20% strikeout rate as a team is really, really low. And that's sometimes where Giolito can bail himself out, is with strikeouts, because he is a solid strikeout arm. I'm a little iffy on the number. because I think Bassett and the Toronto side shut the White Sox down. If it's 7 or 8-1 one on one side of things, I could see a scenario where obviously that is the over. I'm a little skittish of that over.
You mentioned Giolito, by the way. One of the other bets that I like, though, Giolito over 5.5 hits allowed, minus 130 in this matchup. Toronto crushes right-handed pitching. I believe they're top 5, if I'm not mistaken, against right-handed pitching this year. Now, over the last few weeks, they really, if you look to see what they're done, the numbers haven't been there for them. That changes tonight, though, in this matchup, in my opinion, which is why I was flirting with the over on the 8.5 in this game alone from the Toronto side. I'm expecting this Blue Jays team to do work at the plate tonight. I'm thinking Giolito, one of my favorites here, and I know we put a decent amount of bets here together for this show. Giolito over 5.5 hits allowed at minus 130. I'll take that, man.
Yeah. So top 7, Fancy. So you're way off. Top
Oh,
7.
my bad.
You're way off. You're way off.
That's like what Ronus does here. It's not 5. You're wrong. It's 6. Hard guy from Queens.
Yeah, 6th or 7th in WOBA, 7th in OPS. So pretty average offense, and amongst 30 teams across bait. Yeah, I mean, Giolito is a guy who can strike a lot of people out. He does miss a lot of bats, but he's also someone who throws a lot of strikes. And when you throw a lot of pitches in the zone, like, you just naturally, there's going to be a lot of scenarios where you're getting hit hard, right? Like, 3 of the last 4 games he's gone over, and 2 of them were Seattle and Miami. Like 2 offenses that are, one is bottom 10 in the league, and Miami is good sometimes, bad others, but mainly better against left-handed pitching. So yeah, I think that's a quality bet, because he could be good in this game and still give up the 6 hits. Like, he could still be serviceable and give up the 6 hits. Toronto's offense is heating up. Brandon Belt in the middle of that lineup, coming off a double dong the other day. I like the depth that they're kind of throwing out there. I think they have like Vladdy hitting 4th now instead of where he used to hit at 2nd. So I like that. So yeah, I like the Giolito over quite a bit. I think this Blue Jays lineup could definitely get to him.
I don't know how you handle this, and maybe this is a good time to talk about this quickly, Grande, the research that goes into it. I mean, you do extensive research for these bets there. I do research. I'm looking at last 2 weeks, for instance, but that could be a little bit deceiving, because if I just looked at the last 2 weeks of production from this Toronto team, maybe I wouldn't be on this prop. So what I do, I actually went back to the specific matchups, looked at the hit totals, saw, okay, well, they've been hitting the ball over the last couple of days. Couple that with everything that you said about Giolito, and that's what still brought me to the over on Giolito. If I just looked at the last 2 weeks as a whole, wouldn't have even gone there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky thing to like dissect, because if it, like, again, and this is why I always talk about sample sizes, and like, large sample sizes are king for me, because that tells you more than you need to know. That will tell you, okay, over 500 plate appearances, or over 1,000 plate appearances, the Blue Jays are doing great against right-handed pitching. If it's a 7-game sample and they're struggling because Joe Schmo is out of the lineup or Bo Bichette's out of the lineup, and then he's back, like, that's just misleading information. So I tend to go with body of work for an entire season, and the entire season tells me that the Toronto Blue Jays are cooking with something, you know?
No, for sure, man. And especially after the last 2 nights tonight, you're feeling they're getting that Giolito. Whether they go over the 8.5, that's the big question here, but I'm expecting Toronto to hold up their end of the bargain, obviously. Now, before we go to another of Grande's bets, which I really, really love, I put a notation there for you, Grande, that how much I love your next bet. Let's talk about something else that I love, that you're going to love very much, and that's the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football Draft Guide, because you can get it now. It's living. It's not like your magazine that comes out and guess what? You have it hard pressed, not going to update itself. No, because our draft guide is living. articles, updated content galore coming out there. Gives you your cheat sheet, one-stop shop to domination. That's what we're talking about when it comes to your fantasy football drafts and auctions as well. I got a little auction piece there. I love the strategy and psychology behind fantasy football auctions. I am a huge, huge auction guy. Oh, Fensty, it takes too much time. I don't care. Get rid of snake drafts. There, I said it. I said it, Grande. I'm on the boat alone. No one's joining the island with me. But still, man, all about being able to have more control over my team's destiny, and auctions are the way to go to that. So if you want to check out that piece, among other pieces, you could purchase a draft guide for $26.99 or get it for free with a monthly or annual all-pro subscription to Fantasy Alarm. And you could start your 7-day free trial on Fantasy Alarm All-Pro and get immediate free access to that draft guide. All you got to do, fantasyalarm.com. That is where you go, Grande. So pumped up that it's fantasy football draft season. The guide's out, articles coming out every single day, man. Rankings are out right now. Just so much information to take in as we head towards our drafts here. And I don't know if you're in something like the Scott Fish Bowl. That's starting up here in a week, though, and I can't be any more excited if you couldn't tell.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in your auction basketball league, so I know how much you love. I know how much you love auctions. I don't share the same sentiment that we should get rid of everything else. Like you're crazy, and Heavy T agrees there. He called you wild for that one. I agree. Like I like auctions. Sometimes, I don't have the patience to sit through auctions.
Baseball auctions are very tough. I'll say
they
that.
are.
Over 5 hours. That's like half your life right there.
Yeah, it's literally half the day. It's half the day.
Football auctions, though. Basketball and football normally take what, Grande? 2.5 hours?
Yeah, 2.5 hours. Yeah.
But baseball, it's like half your life. So
yeah,
I kind of get it from that front. But that's the way to go when it comes to fantasy football. Make sure you get the guide. All articles, someone major gets hurt, a Mike Trout style player gets hurt, boom, updates. That's what we're talking about here, James. Before we move on to NBA and home run predictions, let's talk about another bet that you love that I also like that I'm riding with you on.
Yeah, and we're getting some more plus money. And it's JP Sears over 5.5 strikeouts. And honestly, like, he's turned into a nice little pitcher for Oakland, and it's hard to, that's doesn't happen often saying those words. Nice pitcher for Oakland, nice anything for Oakland
right
at this point. Like poor
Oakland, they're not going to have nice anything soon enough.
They're not going to have nice anything. I mean, they lost their basketball team. They're going to lose their baseball
Grande,
team.
The audience is more interested in hooking up with each other in the stands than actually watching the game.
I mean, there's not even an audience, Fancy. They don't even have an audience. Like. They don't even have an audience, unfortunately. But Sears has turned into a nice strikeout pitcher. 24% strikeout rate on the year. And the Tigers aren't necessarily, they strike out a lot against righties. They don't strike out a ton against lefties, but they have a lot of strikeout upside in their lineup. Jake Rogers, Javier Baez, Matt Vierling, all guys that have pretty high strikeout rates. All guys in their lineup tonight. And it's really appealing. Like Sears has gone over this mark in 3 of his last 5 starts. I like the kid, and he goes over it in the Yankee start if he doesn't get hit around by the Yankees. And, unfortunately, he was on the opposite side of the perfect game, the Domingo Germán perfect game. The only thing that stopped him from going over it again in the Yankee start was just, he sometimes struggles with power. And when you look at Detroit, yes, they have a couple of guys in their lineup that hit for power against left-handed pitching. I mean, they are 13th in ISO. So, for what it's worth, shout out to the Tigers for being halfway decent there. But if he can avoid power in this spot, we're going to really, really, really like the outcome of this JP Sears start tonight. So I'm going to go over 5.5. I think this is a really quality start, 7, 8, 9 strikeout upside.
I first of all love that one. That's kind of one you snipe for me. So we're sniping each other, kind of like we're in a draft or something like that. Which, look, if we both like a bet, I think that's fine. Obviously, we want to give everybody as much, as possible when it comes to betting. But at the same time, it's good that when we're on the same page, just like we have been with at least one of our props here for today. The final bet out there, and I don't even want to really give this out anymore, and that's because the odds at this point are just too unappealing. For some reason, the odds went up on this in the last like hour and a half. I saw it at minus 150, the Joe Musgrove over 4.5 hits allowed. It's now up to like minus
Well, it's
165.
Trout. It's the Trout
Right,
news.
right. So, yeah, it's now up to minus 165, actually. So it actually went up, which is interesting, being that Trout is out here. What do you think, man? Is that just too rich at that point? And maybe you look to, if you're someone who parlays, that's where you maybe look at Joe Musgrove there. Because, look, I just minus 165 to me, just far less appealing than minus 150.
Oh, you had overhit. Sorry, I thought you
Yes.
said.
And I don't, that makes me wonder why people even bet the over on that even more after the Trout news.
The Angels lineup has, let's see, they sent it out lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty, lefty. I mean, there's a lot of lefties in the lineup. That's kind of what's given Musgrove some fits, but like really good pitching environment in San Diego. I don't know. Actually, righties are actually hitting Musgrove a lot harder this year. Yeah, I don't know. That's something I'd probably just stay away from.
Yeah, don't go there anymore.
I'm a
Obviously,
little, yeah. I'm
the
pricey.
Trout news, which happened shortly before we went on here. Yeah, that changes everything there. So ixnay on that. Let's move on to a little NBA talk for a second, James, before we give our home run predictions here. And we're talking some futures here now that the draft is in the books. There's still odds out there regarding where Damian Lillard is going to land, James Harden. For me, it's much harder to figure out the Lillard side of things because the recent reports indicate that Miami, they are not sending an impressive enough trade package, which when you saw initially what they were offering, I said, how can you be interested in this? Okay, you get a couple of picks. So what? Everyone has picks now.
Right.
Second round picks are viewed as silver. First round picks are gold and diamond. And it just, to me, the appeal of just getting a few more picks to get a few more picks for a guy like Damian Lillard just doesn't make sense. A third team is certainly going to have to get involved, or they're going to have to find another trade partner. Meanwhile, on the other side of it, the James Harden to the Clippers, when he opted in, that makes a hell of a lot more sense.
Yep, that was the first place. And there's the conspiracy online that the Clippers and Rockets they just alternate guards. I don't know if you've seen this. Like every guard that's played for the Rockets ends up on the Clippers, so it's just this large conspiracy that Harden's going to end up. Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense for Harden. I've been in the Lillard to Brooklyn camp. That's where I want to see him go if I want to see him go anywhere. Because he likes Mikal Bridges and I like Mikal Bridges, and I'd love to see him in that environment. But yeah, the Miami situation makes no sense. He just wants to go there, but he's not Bradley Beal. He didn't negotiate a no trade clause. He doesn't have that option. And if I'm Portland, unfortunately, thanks Dame for all you did for us, but like I don't owe you jack. If you want to leave, I'm going to get the best deal for my team possible. And that's how Portland should approach it.
I'm very disappointed with this whole situation. Damian Lillard has always embraced the city of Portland. It was very surprising to me that he asked out when all was said and done. And I know with them drafting Scoot Henderson, I know that clogs up the backcourt a little bit. You got Anthony Simons, you got Shaedon Sharpe there. But at the same time, man, I was just surprised you can use the first few years to kind of season Scoot Henderson a little bit. You don't immediately need to insert him just because he's a second overall pick. We saw Jaden Ivey coming off the bench, and he was the fourth overall pick in Detroit last year at the start before Cade Cunningham got hurt. And then he still at times came off the bench.
I think they needed to, if they wanted to appease Dame, if they wanted to keep Dame, I can't fault him for wanting to leave. He has remained loyal to them till his age 34 season, and they haven't improved. The most they've done is give Jeremy Grant $150 million, and that's not getting it done. So I have no ill will towards Dame. This is also someone I'm also the same. I didn't care for Kevin Durant going to Golden State too. So like, it's just the NBA and they're super teams. There's been super teams since the 80s. You and I have had this conversation for a long time. Before the 80s, there's been super teams, and people just fail to admit it, and they think the NBA is bad because of it. But whole different topic for a different day. Yeah, Portland owes nothing to Dame, and I hope they get the best deal possible for him. I would bet the Brooklyn, whatever the odds to Brooklyn is, that would be my bet for Damian Lillard.
For Damian Lillard at this point here. But hey, the Blazers are waiting for the right deal. Let's talk about some futures, though, that we're interested in. I'll start here with the MVP. I think Giannis and the Bucks are going to be out for blood. They got humiliated. This team should have won the championship. Granted, Giannis got hurt for a couple games. He wasn't 100%. So what? This team, in my opinion, still plenty deep to be able to do damage even without Giannis, and they couldn't get it done against the Miami Heat. So for me, I'm thinking that all starts from the top. Giannis at plus 550 to win the MVP, and fade Luka Doncic, who has worse odds than him, to win the MVP. You do not bet Luka Doncic. The Dallas Mavericks re-signing Kyrie Irving has ruined any possible ceiling for Luka Doncic. It was stupid. It was moronic. They're desperate. They're thinking they need to draw. So they decide to bring in a guy for a boatload of money who plays exactly the same way, same ball dominant guard as their point guard, who could be arguably one of the best, if not top 5, top 3 in the league, if he didn't have to deal with a guy who's so similar in the backcourt sharing the rock with him. I get it. He's a name, Kyrie Irving. Skilled player. I understand that. But Luka does exactly the same thing. Luka's not winning the MVP with Kyrie Irving on his team.
Yeah, I mean, their roster is just not very appealing to begin with. And you've just seen in recent years and just the long history of the MVP award that your team, outside of the Russell Westbrook anomaly year where he averages a triple-double, it's going to a top-seeded team. And now Embiid won this year, and they obviously weren't the 1 seed, but he was fantastic. And obviously voter fatigue, didn't want Jokic to win a third straight year.
I'm sorry.
Agree. No, I agree. I'm just saying, like, clearly voter fatigue, look, they were the best 2 players in the league this year. They should have finished 1 and 2. I think you and I both agree. It should have been flipped, but we move on. Jokic enters the year with the best odds to win MVP. That would be where I would start my money. I would put Giannis right behind him. I agree on the Luka front. I think there's something to be said for Jason Tatum, and the similar way the Boston season ended as Milwaukee. Obviously, Boston was a game away from the final, so it was different than what Milwaukee endured, the first round upset. But like, Tatum got off that crazy start where he was the front runner to the MVP last year. Like, they traded Smart. Brogdon has a serious injury, apparently. Whatever the reports come out about Brogdon's injury, we'll find out like how severe. Love the addition to Porzingis. Like, I think the addition to Porzingis only helps Tatum offensively, because now guys have to respect Porzingis, or just like the perimeter more with how good Porzingis is. The pick and roll with Porzingis is going to be elite. The pick and pop with Porzingis is going to be elite. If I were to bet anyone outside of Jokic, Giannis, it would be Jason Tatum, because I think Boston is going to once again reign supreme in the East. If it's not Milwaukee, it's Boston. I think they're going to be the 2 best teams in the East once again. So the only other odds on favorite I would bet, and plus 900, not too bad for Jason Tatum at current standing.
Excellent player, excellent option. I was praying that they wouldn't break up the band. I didn't think it made any sense. Very hard to get the combination that they have, this Boston Celtics team. You don't mess with it, okay? You don't. And for them, by the way, still very impressive, down 0-3 to bring it to 7. It just shows that this Boston team, they went cold. They weren't connected. That happens sometimes during playoff runs. And when they started to finally figure out, their backs were completely against the wall. You have an interesting odds, though, for Rookie of the Year, and that's something that I'm interested in as well. Why don't you tell the nice folks out there here on Bettor Sports Network about it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's throwing money away, because, like, obviously Victor Wembanyama is far and away going to be, he's going to play all the minutes this year because there's no competition in San Antonio. But we've seen this song and dance a couple times where top prospects miss an entire year and they come back and then they blow the competition away in the Rookie of the Year race. How about Chet Holmgren, who has put muscle on in the offseason? He's going into a really good situation. I mean, we saw what OKC did from the year prior, like night and day. They have elite talent around him in Josh Giddey and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like, this could turn into a very, very interesting situation in Oklahoma City where people want to go there. People are going to be betting OKC all year because they're going to be a fun, young, rising team. Already they were last year, but that's only going to take the next leap with Chet Holmgren. And this was a guy that was, live to go number one in the draft 2 years ago. He was arguably like the best college player in the league when he came out. Like, this is an incredibly talented and just weirdly shaped person. Like, he's 7 foot. He's an elite shot blocker. He can stretch the floor. He can dribble. Like, this is like, I'm just going to say the comparison is Kevin Durant. Like, he is skinny like Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant wants to say he's 6'9". He's not. He's 7 feet tall. Like, everyone can see him when he stands on the court. He's Kevin Durant-like. So is he going to score like Kevin Durant? Probably not. But he's a better defender right out of the gate than Kevin Durant's ever been. And Kevin Durant's a pretty good defender in his own right. So I don't know. Chet Holmgren plus 450. If you want to get any odds on Rookie of the Year outside of Wembanyama, who's obviously going to be, the favorite from pillar to post, I think going Chet, who people might forget is still classified as rookie because he didn't play a game last year.
I like that. The biggest key that you said, putting on that muscle mass and definitely looking a lot bigger. Be careful betting Scoot Henderson. I know we were just talking about Damian Lillard getting traded. Remember, they could still end up starting a backcourt of Simons and Shaedon Sharpe, and we don't know who they're going to get back. They get back a skilled guard that can clog it up even more. Don't get trapped by that. Finally, James, home run predictions as we flip it back to baseball. You and I kind of on the same page, going full circle with our conversation. Want to attack Luis Ortiz. And for me, hey, if you're going to say walk, 3-run home run, walk, 3-run home run, for me, I'm going after JD Martinez tonight here. You're looking at his splits and you're seeing, he hits a little bit better against righties. He has 16 of his 19 home runs against righties. And tonight, I know he's been a little bit cold for the most part over the last few games. I think he's due. I think he's going deep. Plus 450. I like the odds.
Yeah, he crushes right-handed pitching too. Like, crushes right-handed pitching. He leads them in ISO. He's fourth on the team in WOBA, but like 376 WOBA. Like, that's first on like every other team in baseball. He just happens to play for the Dodgers, who have Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and those guys. So love that call. And I'm just going to say Max Muncy, who is also a Dodger, plus 350 over on DraftKings. And he's second on the Dodgers in isolated power against right-handed pitching, 278, 361 WOBAs, top, portion of the league. Luis Ortiz has really been bad against lefties this year. 233 ISO. That's directly talking about power. So 233 ISO allowed to lefties is really bad. 472 WOBA. 52% hard hit rate to lefties, 31% fly ball rate is really good. 31% fly ball percentage is really good for left-handed bats. So, Muncy is someone who is going to hit a home run or he's going to have a tough night. And that's pretty much what the last couple of years have turned into for Max Muncy. Still a good player, but I definitely have some interest getting to Muncy here for my home run call of the day.
Those fireworks that you see in the air tonight, those will be Dodgers home runs right there. That's what we're looking at tonight. Give Grande a follow on Twitter at _real_Grande. Me at Fensterman Sports on Twitter. James will be back in just a few minutes with Howard Bender to preview the DFS MLB slate. We thank Tyler Soto for producing. Be safe on July 4th. Don't be stupid. Let's play some bets and let's cash some checks. Good luck. Let's win. Happy 4th.